I've been experimenting with some modifications to the GigaPan Epic 100 imager to try to improve its function with large lenses and heavy cameras. For example, as the Epic 100 ships, the largest barrel diameter of a lens that can be mounted centered over the lower pan motor and aligned with the center of rotation of the tilt motor is about 70 millimeters. That's because the distance between the center of rotation of the pan motor and that button pusher is about 35 millimeters, and the camera tray can't be lowered more than about 35 millimeters below the center of rotation of the tilt motor. So in order for the nodal point of a lens with a diameter greater than 70 millimeters to be mounted at that double point of rotation, at least two adjustments have to be made to the imager. And with this camera, the Nikon D40, those modifications will allow lenses up to 76 millimeters. Not that much of a difference, but enough to allow this lens, the Nikkor 55 to 200 millimeter VR zoom, and some other Nikkor lenses to be mounted at the nodal point. So mounting a lens so that it rotates on its nodal point is important primarily when there are objects in the image close to and far away from the camera. When the camera is rotating exactly on its nodal point, that point in the lens where the light rays meet and then cross, objects at different distances from the camera will remain lined up regardless of which side of the image captures them. This is what it looks like when the nodal point is in front of the point of rotation. The bar in the foreground moves in relation to the shed in the background. Stitching together the left side of this image with the right side of this image could result in artifacts. So here's what I did. In order to align a big lens with the center of the tilt motor, the camera tray has to be lower. Instead of attaching the camera tray with a thumb screw through this slot, I added a hole above that slot and a little bit forward of it, so that when the camera tray is attached with that new hole, it can be adjusted several millimeters lower than it was before and also a little bit back. If a spacer is inserted between the motor plate and the camera tray plate, the whole camera tray, including that button pusher, is moved over a few millimeters. This is a 3 millimeter thick washer. This requires replacing the thumb screw with a slightly longer screw. So now I can mount a camera with a lens with a barrel diameter up to 76 millimeters so that it's aligned perfectly over the lower motor with the center of rotation of the tilt motor. And at this point, you can attach smaller lenses to the camera as well, because with the camera in this position, all lenses, of course, attach along the same axis. So all that remains is to slide the camera back and forth so that that nodal point of the lens is right at the double rotation point. Unfortunately, for this lens zoomed to 200 millimeters, you can't slide it back far enough. The camera tray on the Epic 100 has this part which slides back as far as these two slots allow. So all I had to do was make those two slots a little bit longer by something like 5 millimeters, and that allowed the whole thing to slide back farther, and now I can mount that 55 to 200 millimeter lens zoomed all the way to 200 millimeters at the nodal point so that there's no parallax error at all. The next thing I addressed was the springiness of the camera tray when loaded with a heavy camera and lens. I thought this springiness would prolong vibrations. Rudolf Baumüller shared a solution to this problem on the GigaPan forum. His solution was to support the free end of the camera tray while still allowing it to tilt. And this solution starts with a roller. This roller I harvested from an old camcorder. Its tension arm is sitting firmly on the top of the imager. The other component of this solution is a cam which rests on the roller. The cam is made of PVC. It's shaped from a 1x4 PVC exterior trim board. It's hollowed out and back to fit snugly over the camera tray and button pusher. So all it needs to be attached really solidly is a single thumb screw, replacing the shorter one that adjusted the button pusher height. The camera tray is now supported solidly as it tilts. The button pusher is now not so easily adjustable up and down. This upper hole allows me to slide the button pusher up and attach the cam in case I wanted to use the button pusher arm which came with the Epic 100. Right now it's adjusted to use another button pusher arm to push not the shutter button on the camera, but the button on a wireless remote. That's the next experiment. The D40 does not have a port for an electronic shutter release, and its standard self-timer is not persistent between shots. The D40 does have a persistent self-timer when triggered with this remote. So this is the only way to have the GigaPan trip the shutter after the button pusher motor has stopped moving. The last modification was shared online by Mosley Hardy, who was disappointed with the short cable on the battery holder, which necessitates unplugging that nasty connector to change the batteries. These holders can be purchased for $2, and unlike the GigaPan OEM version, they come with a 9-volt battery connector. So you never have to unplug the nasty connector, and you can make a longer cable if you want, and you can have multiple holders ready to be switched in and out easily. I also made a 6-foot long cable so I could keep the battery holder warm in a pocket or ready to exchange in the middle of a panorama. All right, let's put everything back together and see it operate. Here's the Nikon D40 with a Nikkor 70 to 300 mm AF-G lens, non-VR, mounted on the Epic 100. This lens has a barrel diameter of 74 mm, and its axis is aligned with the centers of the lower pan motor and the tilt motor. However, zoomed all the way to 300 mm, it cannot be moved far enough back, even with my modifications, to place the nodal point at the double rotation point. So for scenes with objects close to the camera, I'll have to use that Nikkor 55 to 200 mm AFS lens. I was lucky enough to find a roller with good bearings in it, and so I suspect this setup does not increase the load on the tilt motor, and might even reduce it. The major drawback of this setup is that it is more or less specific to one position of the camera tray on the tilt motor plate. The camera beeps when the 2-second timer starts, beeps again after 1 second, and then the shutter opens. The weakness of this button pusher solution is that the duty cycle of the wireless remote is probably not up to the tens of thousands of shots you might take for panoramas. But for $15 a piece, you can have spares. So finally, I think I'm ready. All I have to do now is find a great big scene with lots of little details in it that people want to spend their valuable time searching for. Happy snapshotting.